The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky surface of Kepler 442b as Captain Kim Tae-ho sipped his coffee and watched the mining crews prepare for another day. The planet was not pretty to look at with its red soil and strange purple sky, but it held something valuable beneath its surface. Rare metals that Earth needed badly. That was why Tae-ho and his team of 43 people had been living here for almost 2 years. Tae-ho was a man of average height with kind eyes and hands that showed the calluses of hard work. He had been born on Earth but spent most of his adult life traveling between planets, setting up mining operations for the Human Colonial Authority. This job was supposed to be his last before retirement. He planned to return to Earth and maybe open a small restaurant with his wife. The communication device on his belt buzzed. "Captain, you need to see this," came the voice of Park Hyun-woo, the chief engineer. Hyun-woo sounded worried, which was unusual. The man rarely got excited about anything. Tae-ho walked to the main control building, a simple metal structure that housed their computers and communication equipment. Inside, he found Hyun-woo staring at a screen that showed the space above their planet. Dr. Lee So-young, their geology expert, stood beside him with her arms crossed. "What am I looking at?" Tae-ho asked. "Ships," So-young said quietly. "Big ones. They appeared about 10 minutes ago." On the screen, Tae-ho could see dark shapes moving against the purple sky. They were still far away, but even from this distance he could tell they were massive, much larger than any human ship he had ever seen. "How many?" he asked. 15 that we can count," Hyun-woo replied. "Maybe more behind them." "They are not responding to our communication attempts." Tae-ho nodded slowly. In his years of space travel, he had heard stories about alien species, but humans had never made official contact with any of them. There were rumors, of course. Traders who claimed to have seen strange ships. Scientists who believed they had detected alien signals, but nothing proven. "Send a message to Earth," Tae-ho said. "Tell them what we are seeing. Then gather everyone in the main building." As Hyun-woo worked on the communication, the ships grew larger on the screen. Tae-ho could see their design now. They looked like they were built for war, with sharp edges and dark metal surfaces. No pretty curves or bright colors like human ships often had. These ships meant business. Within 20 minutes, all 43 members of the mining team had gathered in the main building. They were a mixed group of engineers, miners, doctors, and technicians. Most of them looked nervous as they stared at the screen showing the approaching ships. "I will not lie to you," Tae-ho said to his team. "We do not know who these people are or what they want, but we are going to stay calm and try to talk to them. We are not soldiers, but we are not helpless either. We have survived on this planet for 2 years. We can handle whatever comes next." The ships began to land about a mile away from the human settlement. The ground shook as their massive hulks touched down. Clouds of dust rose into the purple sky. Then everything became quiet. "They are sending out smaller ships," Hyun-woo reported. "Coming this way." Tae-ho watched as 6 smaller craft approached their settlement. They moved fast and landed in a circle around the human buildings. The design was the same as the larger ships, built for war and intimidation. "Everyone stay inside except for me," Tae-ho ordered. "I will go out and meet them." "Captain, that might not be safe," So-young said. Tae-ho smiled at her. It was the same gentle smile he gave his wife when she worried about his dangerous job. "I have been talking to difficult people my whole life. Miners, corporate executives, government officials. How different can aliens be?" He walked outside alone, his hands empty and visible. The smaller ships had opened and figures were emerging. Tae-ho's eyes widened as he got his first look at an alien species. They were tall, much taller than humans. The shortest of them was at least 7 feet high. Their skin looked like it was made of hard plates, dark green and brown like armor. They moved with the confidence of natural predators. Each one carried weapons that hummed with energy. The leader was clearly a female, though she was larger than most of the others. Her armor-like skin had patterns that seemed to glow faintly. Her eyes were bright amber like burning coals. When she spoke, her voice was deep and commanding. "I am Commander Veltara of the Valdrani Empire," she announced. "This planet now belongs to us. You will submit to our authority or face the consequences." Tae-ho stepped forward, still smiling. "Hello there. I am Captain Kim Tae-ho. Welcome to our little planet. Can I offer you some coffee?" "It is fresh." The alien commander stared at him. Her amber eyes seemed to be trying to understand what she was seeing. Behind her, the other aliens shifted nervously. They had clearly not expected this response. "You do not understand," Veltara said, her voice growing louder. We are the Valdrani Empire. We have conquered 17 star systems. Your species is unknown to us, but that does not matter. You will kneel before the Empire and accept our rule." Teho tilted his head slightly, like he was considering her words carefully. "That is an interesting offer," he said. "But I think there might be some confusion here. You see, this planet is already occupied. We have been here for 2 years. We have mining rights granted by the Human Colonial Authority." Veltara's eyes flashed with anger. "Your mining rights mean nothing. The strong rule the weak. That is the way of the universe. You are small and few. We are large and many. Submit now, and we will allow you to live as our servants." "That is very generous of you," Teho said, his smile never fading. "But I am afraid I will have to decline. You see, we have work to do here. Important work. And we are not really the servant type." The alien commander stepped closer. She was now only a few feet away from Teho, and he had to crane his neck to look up at her. Her presence was intimidating, like standing next to a dangerous wild animal. But Teho's expression remained calm and friendly. "Kneel or die, human," Veltara roared, her voice echoing across the settlement. Teho looked up at her towering form, then glanced at the weapons pointed at him, then back at her glowing amber eyes. His smile grew wider and he clasped his hands behind his back. "I appreciate the offer," he said politely, "but I think I will have to pass on both options." Commander Veltara stared at the small human in front of her. In all her years of conquest, no species had ever responded to her ultimatum with such calm refusal. Most beings either fell to their knees immediately or attacked in desperate fury. This human did neither. He just stood there smiling like they were discussing the weather. "You refuse to kneel?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of confusion. "Well, yes," Teho replied. "My knees are not as young as they used to be. Getting back up would be quite difficult." Behind Veltara, her warriors exchanged glances. They had conquered planets where the inhabitants fought with desperate courage. They had faced species that tried to bargain or beg for mercy. But they had never encountered someone who seemed to treat their overwhelming military superiority as merely amusing. "Perhaps you do not understand the situation," Veltara said slowly. "We have 15 warships in orbit. You have 43 people and mining equipment. We could destroy your settlement in minutes." Teho nodded thoughtfully. "That would be unfortunate. We have done a lot of work here. It would be sad to see it destroyed. But you know what they say, nothing lasts forever." Inside the main building, Park Hyunwoo was frantically working at his computers. Dr. Lee So-young stood beside him, watching the confrontation outside through the windows. "What is the captain doing?" whispered Yoon Da-eun, a young technician who had joined the team only 6 months ago. "Why is he not afraid?" "Because he is Captain Kim Tae-ho," replied Choi Jin-soo, a quiet miner who rarely spoke. "He once talked down a group of pirates who boarded our transport ship. Made them apologize and give us free fuel." So-young was not watching the conversation anymore. She was studying the aliens through binoculars, taking notes on their behavior and equipment. As a scientist, she found them fascinating. Their armor seemed to be part of their natural body structure. Their weapons were advanced but designed in a way that suggested they preferred direct confrontation over subtle tactics. "Hyunwoo," she said quietly, "can you scan their ships without them noticing?" The engineer looked up from his work. "Maybe. Why?" "I want to understand their technology. The way they move, the way they think. Everything about them suggests they are used to winning through raw power." Outside, Veltara was growing more frustrated. She had expected the human leader to either surrender or make some desperate attempt to fight. Instead, he seemed genuinely curious about her and her people. "What is your species called?" Teho asked. "We are the Valdrani," she replied automatically. "Interesting name. And you have conquered 17 star systems?" "Yes. Each one submitted to our superior strength." "That must have been a lot of work," Teho said. "How do you manage so many different planets?" "It seems like it would be quite complicated." Veltara paused. No one had ever asked her about the administrative challenges of running an empire. The strong rule. The weak obey. "It is simple." But people are not simple," Teho said. "Every planet must have different resources, different problems. Some might have food shortages. Others might have natural disasters. How do you handle all of that?" The alien commander found herself actually thinking about his question. The truth was that managing conquered territories was incredibly difficult. Rebellions were constant. Planets that seemed secure would suddenly rise up against Valdrani rule. but she had never discussed these problems with anyone outside the Empire. "That is not your concern," she said finally. "Of course not," Taeho agreed. "I was just curious. You seem like someone who has seen many different worlds. That must give you an interesting perspective on things." While this strange conversation continued, 3 Valdrani warriors decided to search the human settlement. They entered the workshop where Choi Jin-soo was supposed to be working. The quiet miner was nowhere to be seen, but they could hear sounds coming from deeper in the building. The warriors moved forward confidently. They were each 8 feet tall and armed with energy weapons. What could one small human do against them? They found out quickly. Jin-soo had been a soldier before becoming a miner. He knew how to use his environment as a weapon. When the first warrior entered the workshop's main room, a heavy mining tool swung down from the ceiling and knocked him unconscious. The second warrior turned to help his comrade and stepped into a carefully hidden pit, filled with sharp metal scraps. The third warrior began to raise his weapon, but Jin-soo was already moving. The human was much smaller and weaker than the alien, but he was faster and smarter. He used the workshop's machinery to his advantage, leading the warrior into a maze of heavy equipment and tight spaces where size became a disadvantage. Within 10 minutes, all 3 warriors were unconscious or trapped. Jin-soo had not killed any of them, but he had made it very clear that humans were not as helpless as they appeared. Back outside, Veltara was beginning to realize that something was wrong. Her warriors should have reported back by now, but she was also finding herself oddly engaged in her conversation with the human captain. "Tell me about your species," she said. "What makes you think you can resist the Valdrani Empire?" Taeho considered the question seriously. "We are just people," he said. "We work hard, we solve problems, we take care of each other. Nothing special, really, but you show no fear." "Oh, I am definitely afraid," Taeho admitted. "You and your people are quite intimidating. But being afraid does not mean we have to give up. Sometimes being afraid just means we need to be more creative." At that moment, Hyunwoo's voice came through Taeho's communication device. "Captain, we have finished the scans. Also, Jin-soo has dealt with some visitors." Veltara heard the transmission and her eyes narrowed. "What has happened to my warriors?" "I am sure they are fine," Taeho said. "Jin-soo is very gentle. He probably just invited them to sit down and rest." The alien commander activated her own communication device and barked orders in her native language. Within minutes, she received a report that made her expression even more puzzled. Her warriors were alive but defeated, overcome by a single human using nothing but cleverness and mining equipment. "This is impossible," she muttered. "What is impossible?" Taeho asked. "You are weak, small, few in number, but you act as if you have some advantage we cannot see." Taeho smiled again. "Maybe that is because we do. What advantage could you possibly have?" The human captain looked around at the settlement his people had built. Simple buildings constructed from local materials, mining equipment that had been modified and improved dozens of times, gardens where they grew food in alien soil. Everything showed the signs of human adaptability and ingenuity. "We have each other," he said simply, "and we have time to think." Before Veltara could respond, an alarm began sounding from the mining tunnels. Daeun's voice came through the communication system, high with panic. "Captain, there has been a cave-in in Tunnel 7. I am trapped." Taeho's expression immediately became serious. Without hesitation, he turned toward the tunnels. "Excuse me, Commander. We have an emergency." Veltara watched in amazement as every human in the settlement immediately stopped what they were doing and ran toward the collapsed tunnel. They did not wait for orders. They did not argue about who should help. They just moved together like parts of a single organism. Within minutes, they had organized a rescue operation that showed coordination and efficiency that impressed even the Valdrani commander. Some humans brought digging equipment. Others prepared medical supplies. Still others began calculating the safest way to clear the debris without causing further collapse. And through it all, Captain Kim Taeho worked alongside his people, his gentle smile replaced by focused determination. This was not the same man who had been casually chatting with her moments before. This was someone who would move mountains to save one of his own. For the first time since arriving on this planet, Commander Veltara began to wonder if the Valdrani Empire had made a serious mistake. 3 days had passed since the cave-in rescue, and Commander Veltara found herself in an impossible situation. Her orders were clear: Conquer this planet and its inhabitants. But these humans refused to behave like any species she had encountered before. The rescue operation had been flawless. Working together with tools that seemed primitive compared to Valdrani technology, the humans had freed Da'un from the collapsed tunnel in less than 4 hours. They had done it without a single casualty, using careful planning and perfect teamwork. Even more puzzling, they had invited the Valdrani warriors to help, treating them like neighbors rather than invaders. Velterra had watched Captain Kim Tae-ho during the entire operation. The small human had worked harder than anyone, his hands bleeding from moving sharp rocks, but he never stopped encouraging his people. When Da'un was finally pulled from the tunnel, injured but alive, Tae-ho had tears in his eyes, the commander of a conquered species crying with relief over one saved life. It made no sense. Her communication device buzzed with an incoming message from orbit. Admiral Korthek's face appeared on the screen, his expression cold and impatient. Commander Velterra, explain the delay. Why have you not secured this planet? Velterra looked around at the human settlement. The miners had returned to their work as if nothing had happened. Tae-ho was sharing breakfast with some of her warriors, teaching them to use chopsticks while they tried to explain Valdrani military tactics to him. The situation is complex, Admiral. Complex. You have overwhelming superiority. Crush any resistance and establish control. They are not resisting, sir. Not exactly. Admiral Korthek's eyes narrowed. Explain. They refuse to surrender, but they also refuse to fight. They treat us like guests. Guests do not matter. Results matter. You have 6 hours to complete the conquest, or I will send additional forces to handle the situation. The transmission ended, leaving Velterra staring at a blank screen. She knew what additional forces meant. Admiral Korthek would bombard the planet from orbit, killing every human and Valdrani on the surface. It was a standard tactic when local commanders proved ineffective. She walked over to where Tae-ho was sitting with her warriors. The human looked up at her with his usual friendly smile. Good morning, Commander. Would you like some coffee? I think your people might enjoy it. We need to talk, she said quietly. Tae-ho nodded and stood up. They walked away from the others, stopping near the edge of the settlement where they could speak privately. My superiors are losing patience, Velterra said. They expect this planet to be under our control. I understand. That must be frustrating for you. The simple statement caught her off guard. She had expected arguments or pleas for mercy. Instead, he seemed genuinely concerned about her professional difficulties. In 6 hours, Admiral Korthek will arrive with additional ships. He will not waste time with negotiations. Tae-ho nodded thoughtfully. What will happen then? Orbital bombardment. Everything on this planet will be destroyed, including your warriors who are here with us. Velterra paused. She had not considered that aspect. Korthek would indeed sacrifice her entire landing force to send a message about the cost of failure. Yes, she admitted, including my warriors. That seems wasteful, Tae-ho said. Your people are obviously skilled and experienced. It would be sad to lose them over a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Well, yes. You need this planet for some reason, and we are already here doing useful work. It seems like there should be a way for everyone to benefit. Before Velterra could respond, shouts erupted from the settlement behind them. They turned to see Valdrani soldiers surrounding Dr. Lee So-young and dragging her toward their ships. What is happening? Velterra demanded. One of her lieutenants approached. Sub-Commander Grek believes the humans are transmitting intelligence to their government. He is taking the female for interrogation. Velterra felt a chill of dread. She looked at Tae-ho, expecting to see anger or panic. Instead, she saw something much more frightening. The human's friendly expression had not changed, but something cold and dangerous had appeared in his eyes. I see, Tae-ho said quietly. That is unfortunate. Captain, I did not order this. Grek is acting without authorization. I understand. But you know, Commander, I think there might be something you should know about humans. What is that? Tae-ho turned to face her fully. His smile was still there, but it had changed completely. It was no longer warm and friendly. It was the smile of a predator who had just been given a reason to hunt. We are very protective of our family. Within minutes, the entire dynamic of the settlement changed. The humans who had been working peacefully began moving with new purpose. Hyunwoo appeared with a group of technicians who were carrying equipment that looked nothing like mining tools. Choi Jinsu emerged from the workshops with several miners. all of them armed with devices that hummed with dangerous energy. How did you, Veltara began. Modify mining equipment into weapons, Teho finished. We have been thinking about that possibility since you arrived. Just in case. Sergeant Kang Min-ho, who had introduced himself as a simple maintenance worker, was suddenly giving tactical instructions to other humans. His military bearing was now obvious, and Veltara realized she had been completely fooled about the nature of this settlement. You are not just miners, she said. Oh. We are definitely miners, Teho replied, but humans tend to be good at multiple things. Min-ho used to be a combat engineer. So Young studied alien cultures before becoming a geologist. Hyunwoo designed military systems before he started working with mining equipment. The human captain's communication device buzzed. Han Bitna's voice came through clearly. Captain, I have established contact with the Valdrani ship holding Dr. Lee. They are willing to negotiate. How did you contact them? Veltara asked. We learned your communication protocols 3 days ago, Teho explained. Bitna used to work in interstellar communications before joining our team. The alien commander was beginning to understand that everything she thought she knew about this situation was wrong. What do you want? Dr. Lee back safely and unharmed. Your sub-commander Grek can keep his dignity by releasing her voluntarily. Everyone goes back to having coffee and discussing philosophy. And if he refuses? Teho looked out toward the Valdrani ships. Several humans were now visible on nearby hills, carrying equipment that definitely was not designed for mining. Others had disappeared entirely, probably moving through the tunnel systems that honeycomb the planet. Then we will have to insist more firmly. You cannot fight our ships with mining equipment. Commander, with respect, you have been here for 3 days and you still think we are just using mining equipment. At that moment, an explosion echoed across the landscape. One of the Valdrani ships was now listing to one side, smoke pouring from its engines. But there had been no visible attack, no weapons fire. How? Lim Jae-sung used to design computer viruses before he became our system specialist, Teho explained calmly. Apparently your ships have some interesting vulnerabilities in their control systems. Veltara's communication device crackled with panicked reports from her scattered forces. Weapon systems were malfunctioning. Ships were losing power. Warriors were finding themselves trapped in corridors that had been sealed by invisible saboteurs. Stop this, she commanded. Dr. Lee, Teho replied simply. I will order Grek to release her. Thank you. That would be appreciated. But even as Veltara gave the orders, she realized that the humans had fundamentally changed the nature of their relationship. They were no longer helpless victims waiting to be conquered. They had become something much more dangerous, an unknown factor that could not be predicted or controlled. And Captain Kim Tae-ho was still smiling that terrible, friendly smile. Admiral Korthek's flagship appeared in orbit exactly 6 hours after his deadline. The massive warship was 3 times larger than any vessel in Veltara's force, bristling with weapons that could reduce the planet's surface to molten glass. As promised, he had come to solve the problem with overwhelming force. Dr. Lee So-young sat in the settlement's medical bay, being examined by their doctor while Captain Kim Tae-ho listened to her report. She had been treated well during her brief captivity, but she had also been observing everything about Valdrani ship design and technology. Their systems are more advanced than ours, but they are built for direct confrontation, she explained. Everything is designed around the idea that they will always have superior firepower. They do not plan for situations where the enemy might be creative. What did you learn about their culture? Tae-ho asked. They respect strength, but their definition of strength is very narrow. Physical power, military might, the ability to dominate through force. They have trouble understanding other kinds of strength. Han Bitna approached with a communication device. Captain, Admiral Korthek is demanding to speak with Commander Veltara. He sounds displeased. Through the window, they could see Veltara talking urgently with her remaining warriors. Several of her ships were still disabled from Jae-sung's computer attacks. Her forces were scattered and confused. She was clearly in an impossible position. Patch me through to the Admiral, Tae-ho said. Sir? Bitna looked surprised. I think it is time for a more direct conversation. Within minutes, Admiral Korthek's image appeared on the settlement's main communication screen. He was even larger than Veltara, with scars across his armored face that spoke of many battles. His amber eyes burned with cold fury. Who dares interrupt a military communication? he demanded. "Good afternoon, Admiral. I am Captain Kim Tae-ho. I believe you have some concerns about this planet." Korthek stared at the small human on his screen. "You are the leader of this pathetic resistance." "I would not call it resistance exactly. More like a conversation that got a little heated. You have humiliated trained Valdrani warriors. You have damaged our ships. You will pay for this insult with your lives." Tae-ho nodded thoughtfully. "I can understand why you might be upset. But before you do anything hasty, there is something you should know. Speak quickly, human. My patience is limited. We have been studying your people since you arrived. Your tactics, your technology, your methods of conquest. It has been quite educational. Studying us?" Korthek's voice carried a note of confusion. "Oh yes. You see, this settlement is not just a mining operation. It is also a research station. We have been preparing for eventual contact with alien species for quite some time." The Admiral's expression grew more suspicious. "What kind of research?" "Military analysis, primarily. Your conquest of those 17 star systems left quite a trail of evidence. Tactics, ship designs, communication protocols, command structures. We have been putting together a comprehensive profile of Valdrani military capabilities." Tae-ho gestured, and Hyun-woo activated a display showing detailed schematics of Valdrani ships and weapons, information that should have been impossible for humans to obtain. "How did you acquire this intelligence?" Korthek demanded. "We asked nicely," Tae-ho replied with his characteristic smile. "Your people are quite talkative when they are not trying to conquer something. Commander Veltara has been especially helpful." The display changed to show tactical analyses of previous Valdrani campaigns, weak points in their strategies, patterns in their attack formations, vulnerabilities in their technology that could be exploited by a sufficiently creative opponent. "This information has already been transmitted to Human Colonial Command," Tae-ho continued conversationally, "along with detailed scans of your ships and weapons. Quite valuable data, really." Admiral Korthek was silent for a long moment, processing the implications. "You use this first contact as an intelligence-gathering operation?" "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds rather cold. I prefer to think of it as getting to know our new neighbors. We are not your neighbors. We are your conquerors." "Actually, that brings up an interesting point. You see, Admiral, I think there might be a fundamental misunderstanding about what happened here." The human captain leaned back in his chair, looking completely relaxed despite facing the firepower of a major warship. "You thought you were conquering a mining operation, but what you actually did was volunteer for a comprehensive military analysis by a species you had never encountered before." The truth of the situation began to dawn on Korthek. "You planned this. Not exactly planned. But we prepared for it. Humans are good at preparing for different possibilities." Veltara's voice came through the communication system. "Admiral, I request permission to come aboard and brief you on the situation." "Denied. You have failed to secure a simple mining planet." "With respect, sir, I do not think this is a simple mining planet." Tae-ho stood up. "Admiral, I would like to propose a meeting. Face to face. I think we have much to discuss." "You wish to surrender?" "I wish to talk, just talk. You can choose the location, the security arrangements, whatever makes you comfortable." Korthek studied the human through the communication link. Everything about this situation defied his understanding of how conquests were supposed to work. "Why would I waste time talking to you?" "Because, Admiral, I think the Valdrani Empire and humanity might have more in common than you realize. And because the alternative is for us to remain strangers who only know how to hurt each other. You cannot hurt us. We have superior firepower." Tae-ho smiled again, but this time it carried no threat. It was simply sad. "Admiral, in the past few days we have disabled several of your ships, outmaneuvered your ground forces, and obtained detailed intelligence about your entire military structure. And we did it all while trying very hard not to actually hurt anyone." The implications hung in the air between them. If humans could do all of that while holding back, what could they do if they were truly trying to cause damage? "What do you propose?" Korthek asked finally. "Come down to the planet. Bring whoever you want for security. We will meet in neutral ground and discuss this situation like civilized beings. And if I refuse? Then you return to your empire with the knowledge that there is a species out here that you do not understand. A species that can turn your own advantages against you. A species that your current tactics cannot defeat." Tae-ho paused, letting that sink in. "Or, you can spend an hour talking with me and maybe learn something that could benefit both our peoples." Admiral Korthek was a warrior who had conquered worlds through superior firepower and intimidation. But he was also intelligent enough to recognize when he was facing something beyond his experience. 1 hour, he said finally. I will bring my full security detail. Of course. Oh, and Admiral, you might want to bring Commander Veltara with you. I think she has learned some interesting things about humans that you should hear. As the communication ended, Tejo turned to his team. Well, everyone, it looks like we are going to have some very important guests for dinner. I hope we still have some of that good coffee left. So Young shook her head in amazement. Captain, you just convinced an alien admiral to voluntarily put himself within reach of our weapons. Did I? I just invited him to talk, while he is surrounded by people who have already proven they can disable his technology and outfight his warriors. Tejo considered this. Huh. I suppose when you put it like that, it does sound like a rather significant tactical advantage. Outside, Commander Veltara was preparing for the most important meeting of her military career. For the first time since joining the Valdrani fleet, she was beginning to wonder if conquest was really the only way to meet new species. Maybe, just maybe, there was another option. Admiral Korthek's shuttle landed in the center of the human settlement, surrounded by 12 of his most elite warriors. Each one was armed with the most advanced weapons the Valdrani Empire could produce. They moved in perfect formation, ready for any threat. What they found was Captain Kim Tejo waiting with a folding table, 2 chairs and a pot of coffee. Welcome to our humble settlement. Admiral, Tejo said, gesturing to one of the chairs. I hope your journey down was pleasant. Korthek looked around suspiciously. The humans were going about their normal work, paying no special attention to the arrival of the most powerful military commander in this sector of space. Some of them even nodded politely to his warriors as they passed. Where are your defenses? The Admiral asked. What defenses would those be? Weapons, fortifications, some attempt to protect yourself during this meeting. Tejo poured coffee into 2 cups. Admiral, if I wanted to harm you, would it really matter where I put my weapons? The question hung in the air. Over the past week, the humans had proven that they could strike from anywhere, using tools and methods the Valdrani had never seen before. Traditional defenses would be meaningless. Commander Veltara approached with her own security detail. She looked nervous, which was unusual for a Valdrani warrior. Admiral, I must report that the situation here is not what it initially appeared. Explain. These humans, they are not like any species we have encountered. Their methods of resistance are completely outside our tactical understanding. Korthek sat down across from Tejo, his massive frame making the simple chair look like a child's toy. Tell me about your species, human. What makes you think you can stand against the Valdrani Empire? Tejo sipped his coffee thoughtfully. Admiral, may I ask you a question first? In all your conquests, what happened to the species you defeated? They became part of the Empire. They serve according to their abilities, and are they happy with this arrangement? The question seemed to confuse Korthek. Happiness is irrelevant. Order matters. Strength matters. The strong rule, the weak serve, I see. And how much of your military resources are spent maintaining control over these conquered worlds? What do you mean? Dr. Lee So-young approached the table carrying a data pad. Admiral, we have analyzed your empire's structure based on available information. 67% of your fleet is dedicated to suppressing rebellions and maintaining order. Only 33% is available for expansion. Korthek's expression grew suspicious. How could you know this? We asked, Tejo said simply. Your people are very proud of their military achievements. They enjoy talking about their campaigns. But more importantly, So-young continued, we noticed a pattern. Your empire expands quickly, but it also requires constant military pressure to prevent collapse. Every world you conquer becomes a drain on your resources. This is the way of empire, Korthek said, but there was less certainty in his voice. Is it though? Tejo asked. What if there was a different way? Before the Admiral could respond, Hyunwoo approached with several other humans. They were carrying examples of their work. Mining equipment that had been modified and improved, computers that ran faster than their original specifications, even simple tools that had been redesigned for greater efficiency. Admiral, Hyunwoo said, we would like to show you something interesting. He activated a holographic display that showed the mining operations output over the past 2 years. The numbers were impressive, far higher than similar operations on other worlds. How do you achieve such efficiency? Feltara asked. We work together, replied Choi Jinsu. When someone has a problem, everyone helps solve it. When someone has an idea for improvement, we try it. But who gives the orders? Korthek demanded. Who enforces discipline? The humans exchanged glances. We do not really work that way, Taeho explained. We have leaders, but leadership changes depending on the situation. Yunwoo leads when we have engineering problems. So Young leads when we need scientific analysis. Jinsu leads when we need security. That is chaos, the Admiral declared, is it? Han Bitna joined the conversation. Our productivity is higher than any Valdrani operation of similar size. Our people are healthier and happier. We have had 0 serious conflicts in 2 years. Sergeant Kang Minho stepped forward. Admiral, with respect, we studied your military tactics. They are effective for conquest, but they are terrible for building anything lasting. What do you mean? Every species you conquer learns to hate you. They obey because they fear your weapons, not because they believe in your cause. The moment you show any weakness, they will rebel. Taeho leaned forward. Admiral, what if I told you there was a way to expand your influence without constant warfare? A way to gain the willing cooperation of other species? Impossible. The strong rule. That is the natural order. But what if strength came in different forms? So Young asked. What if the strongest empire was not the one with the biggest weapons, but the one that other species wanted to join? She activated another display, this one showing hypothetical projections. Imagine if instead of conquering worlds, you invited them to become partners. Imagine if your empire grew because other species saw the benefits of cooperation. They would never agree to such a thing. They might, Taeho said quietly, if the benefits were real. If joining your empire meant their people would be safer, more prosperous, and happier. Korthek stared at the projections. The numbers were compelling, but they challenged everything he had been taught about power and control. You are suggesting we abandon our entire way of life? No, Veltara said suddenly. They are suggesting we improve it. Everyone turned to look at the commander. She had been quietly observing the human settlement for days, watching how they worked together and solved problems. Admiral, these humans defeated our forces without killing a single warrior. They obtained our most classified information while treating us as guests. They demonstrated capabilities we never suspected while offering us coffee and friendship. She paused, choosing her words carefully. What if this is what true strength looks like? Not the ability to destroy, but the ability to build something better? Korthek was silent for a long moment. Around them, the human settlement continued its daily activities. People working together, sharing knowledge, solving problems through cooperation rather than domination. What do you propose? He asked finally. Taeho smiled, and for the first time since meeting the Valdrani, it was entirely warm and genuine. Partnership, Admiral. Your people have knowledge and resources that could benefit humanity greatly. We have methods and perspectives that could help your empire become something magnificent instead of just powerful. You would trust us? After we came here to conquer you? Admiral, trust is not something you start with. It is something you build together. Lim Jae-sung approached with a data pad. We have prepared a proposal for a joint research project. Nothing threatening. Just a small station where Valdrani and human scientists could work together on problems of mutual interest. What kind of problems? Well, Hyunwoo said, your ships are powerful but inefficient. Our computers are adaptive but limited. Together we might build something amazing. Korthek looked around at his warriors, then at the humans who had surrounded them. But instead of feeling trapped, he realized he felt curious. One project, he said slowly. One small station. We will see how this cooperation works. Veltara stepped forward. Admiral, I request permission to oversee this project personally. Granted. But Commander, if this fails, if the humans prove treacherous, the consequences will be severe. Understood, sir. Taeho stood and extended his hand to Korthek. The Admiral stared at the gesture for a moment, then reached out with his own massive hand to shake it. To new beginnings, Taeho said. To understanding strength, Korthek replied. 6 months later, the joint research station orbiting Kepler 442b had become the most productive facility in either human or Valdrani space. Ships designed with combined technology were faster and more efficient than anything either species had built alone. Agricultural techniques shared between the species had solved food shortages on 3 Valdrani worlds. Most importantly, Two former enemy fleets now worked together to explore regions of space that neither could have safely investigated alone. Commander Veltara stood on the observation deck of the new station, watching human and Valdrani engineers work side by side on the latest project. Captain Kim Tae-ho joined her carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Do you ever regret not conquering us?" he asked with a grin. Veltara accepted the coffee and considered the question. "No," she said finally. "This is better than conquest. This is evolution. And what do you think Admiral Korthek would say about that? He would say that sometimes the greatest victory is discovering you were fighting the wrong war." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars and the ships that carried both their peoples toward a future neither could have imagined alone. And in the distance, more ships were approaching, representatives from other species who had heard about this strange alliance and wanted to learn more about a different kind of strength.